Welcome, everybody. We're live on Facebook. I am Love Coach Scott Thomas, and it's time for Straight Talk on Friday night, September the 17th, 2021. And this is International Peace Weekend. And so we're kicking off our show. Really, tonight's show and all three shows that I'm doing this weekend are all about peace. So we're going to be meeting some remarkable people that combine their activism and love of creating peace in the world with very real practical things and with creative expression. I see here come Lily and her beloved. Welcome, you two. And to take us further, we'll meet our guests in a moment, but here is my wonderful partner, Trish.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Friday night. And I'm so excited to meet and to share such a beautiful conversation about what's going on in the world and how we can be more peaceful, loving beings. I am definitely on a loving each other better kick. How can we love each other better? More vastly, more compassionately.
Absolutely. Well, all of our guests are here now, which is great. For Shay and Lily, and I need to pronounce it for me one more time. And you're still muted. We need you to unmute. You know, isn't that the words that we've heard more than anything? Like in the old days, we heard, hi, how are you? Now what we hear several times a day is, no, you're still muted. You're still on mute.
Yeah. So the name is Itai.
Itai. Okay, well, welcome Itai. And I'm so glad Lily did decide to join us. So welcome. And tonight we're going to have a dynamic conversation about what creating peace really means, starting with ourselves. You know, what does it mean to be the change that we want to see in the world? And I want to open us up with something that I'm painfully becoming aware of, which is I believe that the United States and possibly the world, but right now I'm going to just say the United States, we are officially in a civil war. It's not a civil war with guns. It's a civil war with social media, with a lot of psychological stuff, with a lot of self-righteousness, and with a lot of judgment. And I want to say that I have very dear friends that are strongly in favor of vaccination, and I have very dear friends that are absolutely not going to get vaccinated. And it's tearing so many families apart, so many friends apart. And there are many other areas that we can polarize, obviously over social and racial justice and injustice. You know, 6 months ago, it was the election. And so I want to ask our wonderful guests right off the bat, how are you creating peace in your life? And what are the challenges to peace that you're experiencing on a personal level? And I'll start with my partner, Trish, and then we'll go to Shay, and then Lily and Itai.
You know, Scott, that is a big piece of what the world looks like right now, is that there's a lot of polarities. We're in this time of polarity. And what we haven't had is a lot of coping skills to work with each other or even empathy skills. So I know that empathy can be built and created and cultivated. Thanks, Scott, for teaching me. But the way that our psychology has moved from maybe early 80s and before the 50s, 20s, like the way that society has created us is not to be empathetic or thoughtful or considerate of others, and even to shut down and stuff our emotions. And so for me to be more like in my life, to be more peaceful is to actually do my inner work, which isn't always like smooth, but it is to look at the ways that I'm impacting the world the way that I'm impacting others, the ways that my behavior impacts me, and really to sit with that and to, again, how do I love myself, or how do I love better? And that includes loving you or Shay or Lily or Ite. Like, how do I love you better? And there's a couple ways to do that from my point of view, is to learn someone's trauma and to help them and walk with them through some of those things, and to find ways to regulate and co-regulate in your body, to find meditation or some practice that gets you into your body and out of your head. And another place of really just cultivating empathy is to really find the humanity in someone's experience. So if you can hold that place of, Tatpam Asi, is that I am that too, is that I also am the places where people struggle, and I'm also the places where people are vibrant and wealthy, and I'm also those places, but to really sit with the experience, not in judgment, but in really like wanting to understand, the curiosity piece. And so that's just a couple of the places where I'm cultivating my own practice of peace.
Thank you.
Love you so much.
I'm going to put the spotlight on Shay, and I'm going to introduce her to our audience. And then, of course, I want to hear your thoughts. I apologize. My dogs, of course, are going
Oh,
nuts.
they've got something to say about
They
peace and
see something
compassion,
going
too.
on outside. So, but Shay is a remarkable woman. She's an artist and a philosopher. She's a modern woman who actually has received formal training from Tibetan masters in exile, former Buddhist nun. But what really stood out for me as I kind of read your biography, Shay, is that you're a bodhisattva and you have taken a vow to really commit yourself to a world of compassion and supporting all of us to rise up in consciousness. So I'm going to be very curious to hear a little bit about your personal relationship to the Bodhisattva vow. And then I guess that leads into this question about how you're creating peace in our world.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to the audience about this subject that is so dear to my heart and is a topic that animates my entire life. And I really couldn't agree with you more, Trish. I think that the idea of empathy, the idea of curiosity, these are both really powerful tools in the time that we are alive in. And I like to think of myself as an aspiring bodhisattva, although that may be a little redundant, because I do believe that the bodhisattva is aspiring to live a more compassionate life. And the commitment for me is to make this life of all the lifetimes that from my Buddhist training, I do believe that we are an energetic form and we go out of form and we come back into form. And with this particular opportunity where my heart and my mind have called me to compassion, I feel like I want to offer my life, this life, which with each breath, each motion, each movement. And with that being said, Trish also pointed to the challenge of that. It is not just because one decides that one wants to be compassionate, one is not all of a sudden just compassionate all the time. It's a journey, and I feel like it's an ever deepening journey. It's like a spiral where you're peeling off layers of understanding your experience, you're moving through habits and conditioning, and it's just, there's more and more opportunity. And I know in my own life, as soon as I invited that. As soon as I invite myself to go deeper on a particular topic, whatever it might be, the door seems to swing open for opportunities to practice these things. And so, you know, one building on one's personal practice, one's the begin within concept, I think is so powerful. And the idea of just cultivating first off compassion for yourself, because you are going to face challenges and there are going to be things that trigger you, and how important it is just to be able to recenter in a place of love. And I will say that one of the things I walked away from in my Buddhist studies, and although I don't align with a particular religion of any sort, I found that the Buddhist philosophy was really sort of a game plan for living that has supported me so beautifully. And the idea that we all want to be happy, bottom line, we all want to be happy, and we all want to be free of our pain and our fear, and we want to be loved. And if we can meet each other in that place first, one of the reasons I don't particularly identify as a religion is I found them rather divisive. That creates a lot of divisiveness in our conversation, in our culture. Not to make any of them wrong, they all have beauty and much to offer. But for me, I just want to focus on loving. Can I learn to really, truly love? And so that's the conversation I want to be in with people.
Thank you. You know, one thing I want to say, Shay, that as you talk about that is there is a fundamental human need to want to be special. And often in religion, we fall into the trap of we're closer to God, right? This, because I'm part of this religion or part of this church, part of this cult, or part of this tribe, we are closer to God. We're closer to the answers. And it's so human. It's so perfectly human. And I think it's a trap where most religions obviously start with a very spiritual premise. And the next thing you know, Christians are slaughtering Muslims in the name of Jesus, right?
I like to say wherever humans gather, you know,
Right.
we can have a little bit of crazy going on.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to put the spotlight on our other very special guests. This is Itai and Lily, and they definitely going to have a lot to share about the Middle East and an understanding of that, because Itai was raised on kibbutz. But they are also brilliant artists. They are kind of the guiding force behind the Grammy Award-winning band Opium Moon. And we're going to hear Opium Moon tomorrow night. They are our featured performers on Saturday Night Live. And what's really cool is just the ethnic diversity within the band and how this wonderful band creates incredible music, even though I think one of you people is Iranian and Itai is Israeli. So same question, how are you challenged to create peace in your life? And then what are some of the tools or some of the ways that you are committed to doing that?
I just wanted to say thank you. It's so nourishing to hear you all speak, because nerves are so raw these days. A lot of what comes out of people's mouths is not as loving or as mindful, or as it feels like it's sort of fraught with kind of raw electricity that doesn't know, that's unguided. And the fact that you guys are so grounded and have taken such care to direct the magic toward love and loving and making peace. It feels so good. My soul is so thirsty for this. Thank you. For me, I just wanted a couple things. I had an insight about what you were saying with, in the name of Jesus, people are slaughtering each other. So the commandment, thou shalt not take my name in vain, the Lord's name in vain. I don't think it means don't say God damn. I think it means don't use the Lord's name to justify your own vanity, your own vain agenda.
Beautiful. Yes.
And when I was in my early 20s, my mom, who was a little bit psychic, came up to me at a very inopportune moment and said, I don't know that you're ever going to have children. The world will be your child. And of course, I was horrified that she was like, what are you telling me this for? And I realized when the time came where I had to really make a choice, is this, what do I don't think having kids is gonna be for me. What does it mean to make the world your child? What does it mean to love the world so much the way you would your own child? And I could only look to the brilliant mothering that my mom gave me, which was to love all parts of me and to embrace all parts of me and to weave all of the shadow and the light into the tapestry of humanity. And then she was a comedian, Lotus Weinstock was her name. She used to say, the Bible says, love your neighbors, you love yourself. But if you don't like yourself, your neighbor's in trouble. and so to love all parts, she taught me to love all parts of myself. So every morning I pray to see through the eyes of compassion and see through the eyes of love. And basically just to echo everything that you've all said, which is to basically with curiosity and start with loving and walk alongside someone's trauma and hold them in it. And the shared humanity usually overcomes the divisiveness if you take the time. And the way that we express that, apart from every moment that you give as you go, is through music. And that's what is embedded in the music. That's what the intention is, that we approach the music the way a scribe or a shaman would be, going into fasting and going into the cave. And that's what our discipline is really to purify the process, to purify the intention and the thoughts and the communication, so much so that it really is the vibration of love. And then the prayer is just to share it through the music as widely as possible.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
First of all, thank you for that wonderful reframe about taking the Lord's name in vain. That is just, I now have a fantasy of you writing, like a book on Lily's reinterpretation of the Ten Commandments. Really, or maybe you'll sing it. Maybe that'll be an album. But really, we need that. We need that reinterpretation.
Into a lyric, since I thought of, but it did is like it doesn't mean don't say goddamn.
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Itai, yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Itai, what would you like to share just to start us off?
Well, I think that first of all, thank you for inviting us to be part of this illustrious panel and this very important topic. The point that I always think about is this. We spend so much time not being united in our own selves. Our mind is one place, our body is one place. And commerce world loves it because this way it can convince people that they need this or that in order to be themselves. I think this is the beginning. So most of the world live in this kind of schizophrenia from themselves. People are not united with their own selves, so it's much easier to manipulate them, sell them different ideas. I have very few tools. Well, I got few, but few that really work. And I've learned them from my teacher, and I'm sure you guys have heard them, but I'd like to share them with everyone. And these first tools are called compassionate listening and loving speech. I think that one of the things that we don't do very well is really listen to each other. And in music, we always say that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a subtle hint. We have to listen at least twice as we speak. So for me, the idea that being able to really sit and listen to another person. You mentioned that wonderful episode of Marshall and the Palestinians, which is a beautiful example of this. But the idea that and to go back to the bodhisattva, the idea that you actually are protected by your compassion. So if you sit and listen, the idea of compassionate listening is listen to another person to relieve their suffering. So your only purpose as a listener is to simply relieve the suffering of the person you listen to. And from my own experience, whenever I was able to do this with another person, the transformation in the way they were was astounding. So the idea of being able to really listen with presence and with compassion to another person, and then speaking in a way that promotes peace and love, because the words that we say can create or destroy. And so speaking with, passing a truth, but passing it in a way that actually cause the other person to feel loved, included, seen, appreciated, even if you don't agree with them. I think, for instance, like if we took two halves of the country that are at war with each other, supposedly, and we really were able to sit and listen to each other with, compassionate listening, I think we can change the situation rather quickly, actually. So my two tools. So when I get up in the morning, I take a deep breath, I smile, I give gratitude for being able to be here, and again, give my gift to the world and learn something new every day. And then I try to continually remember this throughout the day. So, and it's really with our breath. I think with every breath, another teacher told me once that we are being born and dying with every breath. And so, in other words, that means that with every breath, we have a chance to completely be reborn and have a new world beginning. So, okay, this was pretty bad. Hey, it's a new world. I can start all over again, creation all over again with every breath. So I try to remember this when things get tough and they get complicated, and as far as the music, our music is based on love, listening, and the courage to be free together. So Hamid Saidi, the Santur master from Iran, for instance, I love him and I love his music and I love the culture and tradition that he represents. So I do not get caught up in the politics of what the politicians trying to make the people do. And we don't get caught in it. We laugh at it, actually. We see the futility and the nothingness of it in reality. And we think that by a living example of if we can create such beautiful music together with ease and grace, we believe it's encoded in our music. So when you listen to it, hopefully you can experience it as well. So that's a long answer to that wonderful question.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm so grateful to have all three of you as our guests. Each of you is just illuminating, and I have listened to your music and it's exquisite. And I'm so glad that we get to share it with our audience tomorrow night.
We're excited too.
Before I go into the next question, I do want to share, because you talked about compassionate listening, and we all, we have a shared love of the teachings of Marshall Rosenberg. And just a reminder that when we are talking to someone who has a different belief system, to really differentiate between our mental strategies and our belief systems, which we can argue over forever. And many people fight and die and break up relationships over different belief systems and strategies. But what we can immediately agree upon is what we're feeling and our underlying values. And again, using the vax or no vax as an example, whether you're strongly pro-vax or strongly anti-vax, underneath it are the same values: the value for health, the value for safety, the value for freedom of choice. It's the same values, but it's just different strategies of how to meet those values. And so if we can transcend beyond our personal choice and our belief system connected to that choice, and recognize we all want to be safe, we all want to be healthy, and we all want to have freedom of choice. Right? That's like a really important starting point, right? To be able to listen, to be able to connect, and to understand the emotions that come along with that. For my anti-vax friends, the emotions that come with the feeling like they're going to have they can't travel because they won't have a vaccination passport. I can understand the anger over that. And for my friends that are very pro-vax, the anger, frustration they have that people aren't willing to take that, to make that choice. So we can understand the anger, we can understand the frustration, and we can empathize with that. And we don't have to agree with the belief system. We can acknowledge the feelings and the underlying needs and values. So just wanted to put that out there as kind of a practical next step towards the beautiful, what Itai was sharing about compassionate listening.
It's a little earthquake here. Not a big deal, but
Are we
What is-
having an earthquake?
yeah,
Yeah, we're having an
it's a
earthquake.
little earthquake here. It's all right.
Oh,
We can handle
the
it.
earth moving.
How perfectly Southern California.
The earth, we're getting agreement from the earth. The earth goes, yeah.
I love
Yeah.
earthquakes. I was born and raised in Southern California. So is it a little one or
No, just a
Yeah, it was
little
like
one
a,
at this point.
it's all right.
a?
The earth
Wow.
moved under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, so I'm going to go to gallery view for a moment just for this next question. This is open to everybody. What is a practice, a non-denominational spiritual practice that you're incorporating in your life when you are confronted by what's not a peaceful situation or a peaceful person? Because I know that all of you, we all deal with that. We all deal with, at some point, people that are angry or situations that are hostile or things we see in the world that don't meet our values. So what are your non-denominational spiritual practices for managing those moments in life? Trish, I see your lips quivering. So
Well, I've got a couple. First, I would just like to say that I am also not a peaceful person at some points, like accepting the fact that I am not peaceful. And I am at the same time. Again, it's the both places.
Yeah.
Well, it's not two, but it's a spectrum of places that I can be in the moment. Welcome to being a human. 1 second. Okay, there's a couple places. Are we talking about in the moment when someone's being aggressive?
yes.
Okay. So if someone, do I know this person? Do I love them? Do they love me? Like
Yes.
there's
Let's start there.
Yeah,
We'll work with that. We'll let you handle that example.
well, I mean, there's like the guy who's just like being weird on the road and being aggressive on the road. And then I just go, bless your soul. I mean, that's just one way. Because I don't have a clue what he's going through, what in the world his world is like. I have no idea, like at all, where his nervous system is or what kind of chemistry he's running in his body or why he's running it. Who knows? I have no idea. So I just kind of like not assume that. With people that I love, if there is an upset, it's generally depends on how hot it is. If it's really hot, then I'll ask for space. It's reassurance, like I love you. I want us to be able to communicate. And I think that maybe some space, and maybe it's like 25 minutes where we breathe and take a walk around the block and come back. And then we can, maybe not talk about the he said, she said stuff, but really about what we want, what the wants are, what the values that we're trying to get met are. If it's not that hot, then I just take a deep breath. And sometimes I'll ask the question, would you all just like to take a deep breath with me for 15 seconds? Would you like to do that? And so we all can start resonating with the same nervous system frequency. The 6 seconds in, 8 seconds out, or just regulating the nervous system together. And then it's getting curious again. What's going on for you? What do you want me to hear that I'm not hearing? What am I not getting? Because I know that you're getting loud or you're really hot about it. Here's an example. I'm vaccinated and I like to wear my mask still. It just is. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I have no idea. Things change a lot in what's happening. This is just how it works for me. I want to be safe. I want to keep the people that I love safe because I don't know. I think that I can still carry and pass it to people who are old. I don't want to kill anybody who's old. Potentially, it might not even be me. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So in that fact, and then there's my family members who are very anti and very aggressive about it. And I always come back to the compassionate approach, like, hey, we all have a choice. We all get to choose what we want to do in here. If you don't want to get vaccinated or mask up, that's your choice. And we get to negotiate reality, AKA negotiating boundaries together. Like, that's how we get to love each other better. This is what we get to do. How can I love Shay better? Like, she's got boundaries for me. Like, I can't just tromp all over her life. And I know that Lily and Ite have boundaries that I can't just like show up at their house tomorrow and be like, hey, yo, and they'll be like, wait, that's how we love each other better, is we find ways to meet in the middle. Because we're all going to have differences of opinions. Like, there's 7.8 billion realities on this planet, if we're only talking about people with one reality, right? And so how can 7.8 billion people come together and find some aspect of peace? Well, it's curiosity. It's allowance of their humanity.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Trish handled a couple of examples. Shay, Lily, Itai, what are some examples you would be willing to tackle? Now I see Shay's lip quivering, so I go for the quivering lip person.
Well, I will say that I am someone that believes fully, with my full heart, that we can all live in love with one another. And I like to start my day with that assumption. And I also believe so firmly that it is the peace within us that is reflected as the peace outside of us. So if we can just fully take responsibility for how we're showing up in any moment. And if there is, Marianne Williamson says something about, if there's disturbance in a moment, what am I not bringing? Ask myself first, what am I not bringing to this moment? And I have to say that with the practice of meditation and mindfulness, these are central to the work that I do. They're central to the practice of the art that I create. My main work is as a painter and a sculptor, as well as working with individuals and groups on mindfulness and meditation. And those tools are just so essential in a triggered moment. I think that it's so helpful to know yourself, to really know your own patterns, know your triggers, and just be real about it. There doesn't need to be a judgment. You don't need to hide. We've all got them. So how can I, in any given situation, assume that I am engaging with someone else who wants things that I want, and that I am responsible for what's reflected in my world, and then take myself in the moment. And again, this is a practice. It is not I've just decided that this is how I'm going to be. And I've been working on these practices for decades, and I still find myself, triggered in some lovely ways. But each one also being an opportunity to go, okay, let me try this again. Let me breathe. Let me center. Let me just grab some space and move into my heart. Let it quiver, let it ache, let whatever's happening in that moment of engagement, and just with my breath, invite my heart to relax. Now, like Trish said, if there are moments, sometimes it's a moment that you just, it's taking you too firmly. And one might need to step away, but one can step away with grace. One can say, I just need a moment. And I do believe if we're walking in the world with this kind of idea of being able to work these things out and recognizing we're talking to another human being, that what manifests around us are going to be circumstances that we can handle. And they're going to be circumstances that may likely push us to our edge and invite us to sharpen those tools really well. But just grounding, being present, moving back into my own body, into my own heart, and being present is probably the most, I think, the most powerful tool that I have in my toolbox. And I will say, though, that tool does need to be sharpened regularly, and not by approaching conflict, but by, the morning moment, the morning moment that, like Itai was saying, about waking up and smiling. I find that so incredibly powerful, and coming into the moment with some gratitude, and then practice a little meditation. I don't care if it's 5, I don't care if it's 2 minutes. If that's what you've got, lay it on you, and really just kind of work that connection to your own inner spaciousness and yeah, my own connection to the field. We are all in that. What am I going to feed into that field in any moment? So I would say I could stop there.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
I just want to say that I love that you brought in self-responsibility. I think that
Yeah, that's
it's just so powerful.
yeah, thank you. I think it's our best bet at this point, because we created this world. If we really do create a reality, then the reality we're living in, we did that. We've created this. So let's shift it. Let's get on it, and let's not get all whiny about it. Let's just, let's just do it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm really appreciating that so many of you, or so much of what we're saying, keeps coming back to self-reflection, being well-resourced. Again, Marshall Rosenberg, one of my favorite quotes from Marshall is, the most important form of empathy is self-empathy. Because the more that we can give ourselves that empathy, fill our well, then we have more to give to others. We will introduce Valerie in a moment, but I want to go to Lily and Itai to hear your next round of wisdom.
Well, first of all, I want to say how much I love, Shay, that you spoke about the practice. I heard somewhere that in a moment of crisis, we don't really rise up to the crisis. So we don't rise up, we fall up to our highest level of preparation, and that comes to our practice. It takes a lot of practice to, when someone come at you, to be able to step back, for instance. For me, one of the ways I look at it as a musician. So I see every human being that I meet and everyone that I meet as a note, or as a piece of music, or as a harmony, or as a chord. And being a bass player, one of my art is, how do I make what you do sound good by what I do? Okay, so you may play a very discordant note, but if I can put something in relationship to it that will make it harmonious, it may change the situation. So conceptually, that's, now the form that it takes many forms. I think the first thing is really to remember this, that a smile can change everything. So if someone coming at you want to attack you, for instance, if you come at them, you're going to get, but if someone comes at you with anger and you respond to them with even just being neutral and smiling, that force, it's so like, Lao Tzu said that the soft overcomes the hard. There's always a way to shift a situation. Now, for me, having been born in Israel and having forced to serve in the army and do all this, and forced it was because I did not want to go, believe me. But being a soldier, but I have in the back of my mind that if any situation, I can handle it. I'm not afraid. I don't walk afraid in the world. But I lived for many years in one of the roughest areas of Venice, area that people are like, well, it's gangland and you're going to get attacked. And I've never had anything happen to me. It was all very beautiful, the people I met, connections I made, and I believe that what she said is true. It's the way we carry ourselves in the world, that's our melody. That's our song. That's what we give to the people around us. And you don't really even have to say it. If it's really strong inside of you, that's what you will radiate, and this, the circumstance you will draw to yourself. And that's what you will give to the people around you. So really in my life, I have found that this is what's happening around me mostly. Situations of peaceful, creative, consciousness raising. And it's not that I don't meet challenging situations, but I found out that if in a challenging situation, I can say, all right, this is this note. What will I do for this note to make it beautiful, or to make it groovy, or to make it so we can flow somewhere? And I think another thing is when someone come at you, step back a little bit. Don't come back at them, you know, because like you said, our needs are the same. We all need air, number one. Then we need water. Then we need food. Then we need shelter and clothes and love. We got these, all human beings need, every living thing needs it. So if we share those basic needs, on top of it, these are all structures that made up later. And I think if we can cut through them to, like you said, Scott, to the basic needs and wants of the people, we can communicate. You know, if somebody doesn't want to think it's their freedom, but their actions can cause the death of another person, what kind of freedom is that? You know, so, but speaking of it in a way that can reach the heart is a different way than kind of blah, da, 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 which, you know, we see it's done for purposes, you know, it's done for purpose of divide and conquer, basically. Yeah. But I had a musician approach.
Lily.
I've done a fair amount of research on the brain because my mom sadly passed away of a brain tumor, and I had brain damage because of pesticide poisoning, because of some irresponsible corporate behavior, and so it's hard not to get angry at that, you know. But what I've realized is that most behavior that I don't like, that I see as harmful, comes from a person or an entity feeling that they don't have enough, feeling where their needs are not being met on some level, whether it's because they weren't, you know, hugged enough as a 4-year-old, or for the hungry ghost, or whatever that is, but basically it's the amygdala being activated on some level. And in the brain research that I've done, I learned that when the amygdala is activated, that it hijacks the energy from the rest of the brain, from the empathetic parts, the rational parts, the parts that really love and can, you know, negotiate and deal with nuance. So confrontation and perpetuating the fear that caused the bad behavior in the first place does nothing to further the situation. It doesn't mean that I don't get triggered, and especially when I'm confronted with people who I feel are endangering other people out of lack of consideration, it's really, really hard for me to deal with it. And I just have to breathe and know that compassion is my best protection, and you know, and reason with myself, okay, just getting angry is only going to perpetuate the thing that I don't like in the first place. And usually I'm brought to tears on some level. And if I really just quiet myself, I realize that the reason that I'm so upset is that I feel unseen, and that I feel that somebody who is, you know, vulnerable is being unseen and bullied on some level, and it hurts. My father was a sociopath who had weapons and all sorts, you know, and like I've known a fair amount of trauma, and so, but if I quiet myself and I let myself feel my own heart, I'm much more able to feel the heart in front of me. And I'm reminded of something that my mom did. My mom, Lotus Weinstock, when she was on stage, she was heckled by somebody and she came back with a little one-liner. And after the show, the person came up to her in the parking lot and slapped her. And my mom paused and hugged the woman and said, I can see that you're suffering. And she listened to what she was feeling, and they became friends. And it's confusing because my mom was also abused and attacked, and was sexually abused many times. So just simply vibrating at the frequency of love doesn't mean that I'd love to think that it, of course we create our realities, but it's hard to say that when you look at people who are being gang raped in India, and well, how did they create that? I have my skepticism about the law of attraction, but as Itai said, it's really, if we look at it through the framework of music, anything, every single situation, if it's music, can be turned into another chord with the right framing of it. But that requires listening and feeling our own hearts. And again, that's why my life is my practice, my meditative practice, apart from every morning I realize if it sounds like everybody in this group is has a morning practice, but it's just so essential to anchor myself to the truth of who I know, to the big love, which, so that when I am swinging around the chaotic universe, I'm at least tethered to a sense of the big love. And so I'm still wrestling, but through that lens of music and with the anchoring of the morning meditation, I'm able to create more love in the world. And I know that I do that, and I do it every day as much as possible.
Thank you for sharing so vulnerably. I think it's so important that we share our stories and the stories of others, and that we because that's part of the practice of compassion and empathy, right? And I love that you brought in the women in India. And I don't know if you watched the show, Scott, but I have a show called the Self-Love Show on Thursday mornings, and we had a woman on named Manisha Ramdan, and she's going to be on in a couple weeks again, but she is one of those women, one of those girls, and her transformation and how she has found just vast love of herself, her family, her community, and the people around her is so wildly inspiring. Like her just deep compassion and love, and her fierce love. It's fantastic. So I love that you brought that level of human experience in for all of us to share. Thank you. It's important.
And I want to acknowledge Lily's mother.
Yeah.
Maximum grace for Lily's mother for that incredible teaching, and how that has influenced and impacted you is very beautiful.
Yeah.
I also want to say for a moment, we have 100% control over how we react or respond to life. But absolutely, there are times that people are victimized. And I think one of the cruelest things that I see in the New Age world is when someone has genuinely had some misfortune, and some smart ass New Age person says, well, why did you create that? I'm not a violent person, but that's where it's like, why did you create my fist going into your face? It's like, come on. We do live in a complex world, and there are very significant levels of creativity, and there's individual group reality, but then there's all the different genders and different cultures and all these different layers of co-creation of reality. So let's never lack in compassion, ever, for someone who's suffering, even someone that we can clearly see how they brought it upon themselves. Always lead with compassion. Always, 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 always. empathy first, second, and third. Again, this is kind of a Marshall Rosenberg night, but there's a great quote from Marshall, which is, when you're triggered and you're in a difficult situation, give empathy, seek to understand. Give more empathy, seek to understand, and count to 1 million. Right? Because sometimes we think, oh, I gave empathy, now you got to do what I say. Right? I was compassionate for 2 minutes. I did nonviolent communication for 2 minutes. Now you got to fucking do what I want you to do, right? I'm entitled because I was spiritual for 2 minutes, right? Doesn't quite work that way. So anyway, I just wanted to throw those little pointers out there. And I have invited somebody else into our gathering. This is the magnificent Valerie Romanoff, and Valerie is 100% responsible for introducing me to Shay. So thank you, Valerie. Valerie is also one of our favorite musical artists. And, you know, I'm going to lead with introducing Valerie with the question, but then I want to hear from everybody, because I did make the title of tonight's show, Creating Peace Through Music and Art. And you all have kind of touched on that a little bit, but that's the next question, starting with Valerie as a way to introduce you. How do you create peace in your world through your music?
Good question. Thank you for that. And I just want to say that, first of all, I'm so happy to be on, and everything that everybody's saying, I just so resonating, like ding, ding, ding. It's all, you know, it's all that same stuff that I think about every day and talk about. And I think one thing, reminders. It's like a lot of things I know that we know, and I know that I know, but they're just not in the forefront of my mind in every moment. And so I surround myself as much as I can with reminders of things, whether it's the notebook, you know, beside my bed where I write things and then I'll read, you know, little inspiring quotes, or whether they're pieces of art like the ones behind me, Shay's, you know, or they're jewelry that, you know, was created with an intention. And, you know, that absolutely brings me to music. It's from a vibrational standpoint, the energy of the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that we either are feeling or want to encourage other people to feel, we really can transmit that into the music. And then the music really carries that vibration, you know, the same way that art does and that voice does. And, you know, there's a lot of things that carry that vibration, but putting that into imbuing, you know, the music so that people can have an opportunity, if they want to connect there, to just let that wash, you know, over themselves and then calibrate to that. And like Trish, before you were talking about breathing together and that sort of sympathetic nervous system resonance. And that happens when you listen to music or you're playing music, or that whole collaboration. So that is absolutely something I love doing that. I get a lot out of it. And then when there's songs, you know, that actually have words, or whether there's mantra or chanting, you know, those are sacred vibrations, and lyrics to songs as well. For me, that's some of the reminders. Like I put into the lyrics of songs the very things I want to remember, you know, about remembering to look at myself, because that's a theme everybody's been talking about. And it's so true, because I can really sometimes see the difference when I react to somebody who's being very reactive. And sometimes, and it's not as usual as I'd like, I have no thought about myself. And all of a sudden I'm just like, wow, what does that person need? You know, how can they feel better? Contrasted with most of the time, I get my back up, or I get triggered and I'm mad too if you're mad at me, you know, and then I realize that I'm, you know, kind of gotten myself like up to a pitch, and then use whatever my tools are, you know, to kind of come back down, and then want to share that, you know, to help other people remember that, because that was helpful to me. And I learn some of, you know, my, Shay, you call them tools and tips, you know, and you know, learn that from other people as well. So yeah, the music is such an amazing vehicle for feeling better, for putting more peace in the world. I'll just say one more thing about it, is I feel like, and somebody said this already, that what we're feeling inside is really what we're putting into the field, you know, that kind of vibration. And so if we're putting out something that feels really peaceful and lovely and, not agitated and not discordant, then people around us are going to feel that way. They're going to feel good in that way. And the music really has a lot to do with that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Valerie, and welcome, and thanks for being with us and
Thank you.
introducing us to Shay. And I think I'll put the spotlight on Shay. Shay, tell us, because your art isn't music, it's creative, it's creating art, visual art, and your tapestries, and tell us about that.
Okay, I would love to. And I would also like to share on the heels of your comments, Scott, and what you've said, Lily. I cannot agree with you more. I think that this idea of, we create our own reality, that has it can be used superficially, or it can be rather flip. We can be flip about it. And that is not okay, really. It is, I myself have been subject to violence and abuse in my own life. And I did not heal by, criticizing myself for it, or putting some guilt trip on myself for all of that. The compassion is the key. What I refer to when I talk about it, and I appreciate your making your points about it, because I think we do need to take it seriously. I'm really just talking about personal responsibility, and not like I'm, oh my gosh, I've been subject to this, so how did I create this? It's just, how am I going to respond to it? How am I going to respond to each moment? So I just wanted to offer that for the moment. I think it's such an important thing that we remember the responsibility that we have as spiritual practitioners to really show up listening and speaking and acting from a place of compassion, and not dismissing one single heart that's out there. So I just want to say that really quickly. And then I would love to talk about the art, because art, to me, I marvel at what art is. I'm a sculptor and a painter and a jewelry designer. And I started my career as an artist. Of course, I made things all through when I was a kid, but that wasn't, taken seriously as something that you would make a living with. But when I met my spiritual teacher, she really saw the artist in me. And so my development as an artist and as a spiritual practitioner, they grew together. And my first projects were building stupas. For years, I built stupas, sacred Buddhist monuments. I was in Maryland on the East Coast and had the extreme good fortune of being able to do everything from digging the ditches and bending the rebar to creating the sculptures that have gone on to the front of them. And it's what actually brought me to Sedona, where we built a 36-foot stupa here as in the Amitabha Peace Park, which is just a beautiful, peaceful place to go. And I still find myself doing that, helping with some stupas. But what that did for me was it helped me to recognize how intentional our effort, if I want to call it effort, can be in our creative process. And with the Tibetan arts, what was particularly interesting about that, I studied with the Tibetan masters in the sacred arts, and that everything that they do is created for spiritual purpose. So, I like to say it's lovely if it matches the couch, but truthfully, it's all meant to bring something potent into the world. In fact, I was going to change up the background on this wall before our session here, because I just wanted to share some different pieces, because this one is often one that comes up. But I chose to leave this one because it's a very traditional image in the Tibetan tradition, and it's very much associated with compassion. But the process is the artist is invited to sit down and center in their heart and arise as the deity invoking the deity. So the spiritual practice of creativity becomes perfectly aligned with one's spiritual intentions. And I worked on these stupas for many years, but there was something radical changed in my life when I discovered pointillism. And pointillism is the painting style that I use predominantly in my work. The piece behind me, I don't know that you could tell, but it is all made of little tiny dots. And within each field, there are at least 6 different colors in a field. So you've got a great deal of diversity going on throughout the painting. And it's all just pure colors. Nothing is cross-mixed. They're laid in next to each other, and watch how they excite each other. But what I discovered early when I first was exposed to pointillism was that each dot is an intersection of time and space. And it was an invitation. Like, what am I going to do with this moment? Am I just going to paint a dot? And, of course I can in any given moment. I could just make it an ordinary action. But it's what I do with those dots instead is I visualize each one as this jeweled universe that's filling space, as though they are offerings that are being offered, requesting blessings to come to the world to end suffering. And so they become this incredible mandala of intention that is, I think, vibrating, not only vibrating with the color, but vibrating with the intention and vibrating with the sacred images and all of that. And I will say that the pointillism has taught me a number of things. And one of those things is around judgment. It's like when you look at pointillism from afar, the idea is that all those colors, they blend together and they create a certain vibrancy by their blending. But when you look up close, there is so much more going on. And I realize we do that with each other. We do that with each other. We meet someone and we look at them, and then we just sort of size them up and we decide, this is how you are. I got you. I got your number, whatever it is. And if we take the time just to look a little closer, and that's what I like to encourage people to do is pause. I'm a big fan of the power of the pause, and just pause for a moment and feel into the person that's in front of you and look for the things that you might appreciate about them. Look for things that you can celebrate right out of the gate and start your relationships from there, recognizing that we are each so much more complex, than we might. I think Scott pointed to that it's a complex world, and each of us as an individual has an incredible amount of things to offer. And then, of course, the practice of the dots themselves, the power of the moment, being really present in each moment of our lives, each step, each breath. What am I doing in this moment? What am I feeding into the field? Am I being present? Am I being kind? Just simple as, am I being patient? Am I smiling? Smiling is such a power tool as a human being. It lifts us from the inside, and it also lifts the other people all around us. And I could talk on and on about my dots.
Well, here's what we're going to do with the dots. I've actually pulled up one of your beautiful artistic works. This is the particular one I chose. It's the Tara of Peace. Now,
it's perfect choice, Scott. Perfect choice. Mother Tara, Angel of Peace.
Yeah, so I just invite everybody to look at that.
Can you make it any bigger?
Yeah, I can't. Tell me if this makes it bigger.
Zoom in a little bit.
Let's see. No, that didn't work.
We'll use our imaginations, and we'll invite people to visit the website if they would like to. It's at shayglobal.com.
How many dots, how many dots? Okay, I'm gonna go back to it. As we look at it and try to make it big, I lost it. Are you guys
I'm
able
gonna
to see it large enough?
I'm going to have to leave that to somebody with a more linear kind of mind. Maybe they could measure a square inch and count the dots or something. Although there's one piece in my body of work that is about 4 by 5 feet. I spent a year on it, and I got carried away. I started out with, well, I don't know that any of the dots are actually big, but I started out with larger dots at the outer edge. But when I got to the center, I was using a 4/0 brush, just this tiny little, and but it was an exciting project, an exciting project. So,
Wow. Well,
but it also taught me to step away from my easel and try to walk that practice through the world.
Shay, there's so much that we could continue, but I do want to go back to Lily and Itai. Just, gosh, there's an abundance of extraordinarily fascinating human beings. It's remarkable for me as someone who's not an artist, what you've created. And likewise, when I listen to your music, it's like so inspiring. And I really appreciate, Itai, what you were saying about playing bass and being supportive of your fellow musician. What a beautiful example of how to do life, you know?
I believe that we are all artists of life. You know, so the question is what kind of life we want to have, what kind of art we want our life to be. One of the things that we do in our music, which why we actually call our music a blueprint for peace, is that, you know, all of us in the band, everybody is a composer and a producer and can write a million things and tell you exactly what to do. But one of the things that we discovered is it's a much better way to actually find human beings that you share the same artistic and spiritual places, and then simply create a space and be free inside of it. So for instance, someone in the band may bring a melody or an idea, but it's kind of like you say, you know, let's go to San Francisco. And then the music is the journey itself. And the whole idea is we don't tell each other what to do. We don't, and believe me, we are all capable of telling everybody exactly what to do. We found out that when we do this, it may be right, but it's got no soul, and it's got no spirit, and it doesn't have the feeling anymore. And so we found out that simply creating a space where everyone is listened to and respected and appreciated and supported simply creates this marvelous, ever-changing, ever-living entity that encodes inside of it our truest feelings about peace, about love, about community. And so the key comes down to finding people that you can do this with and then kind of get out of the way and allow that space to happen. And I think you can actually extrapolate from this to entire nations and entire people, because even if you don't find people that are exactly on the same wavelength, if you allow yourself to listen and if you allow yourself to create an open space, you may find that there's so many wonderful different ways to deal with things. You know, so for us, it's really like this. I mean, if you saw a rehearsal, if you saw our playing, it's a very open situation, you know, and yet as you listen to the music, it sounds like it's all beautifully orchestrated and everything just comes in the right place, but it comes from spirit. It's basically, we kind of say, spirit, come through us, let it play us. We really are the instruments, you know, because at least for me, I think I don't know if Lily feels, but for me, when I play the best, I'm not even there. It's not really even me anymore. You know, I practice so I can really kind of, when that stuff comes, I don't have to like, oh, my fingers don't move, you know, but once the practice is there, it's really just listen and get out of the way and be present. And that's really how the music is made. So I think in that there's some blueprint for peace and stuff that we can learn.
I'd like to add to that. And by the way, he really lives that. This is a person who walks the walk. One of the other things, just to add to what you're saying, is that I find so beautiful about this band and playing with Itai is that I feel it's sort of like compassionate listening. You know, when you, I feel like there's enough space to actually, when somebody's listening to you and you actually feel like they're actually listening as opposed to just looking to get in another word edgewise, then you can actually relax and you don't feel defensive. When I feel like I have enough time, I'm so much nicer. It's so much easier to be calm and to be defensive and all those other things. So in this music, there's a lot of space. What I love about that is that it gives it, I feel like there's just time to be sensitive. There's enough time to listen and share my heart. And just to go back to the brain science of, you know, when people are triggered, they don't, you know, the rest of their brain is hijacked. They can't experience. So I feel like my job and the way that I've actually been able, my experience as a musician has been that when I make a note, and even just a single note, and especially when I make that note, and my practice actually is my violin practice and my voice practice are actually my meditation practice, because I take it as slowly as possible and try to make it, and I literally feel like every movement, every sound, every wavelength is literally coming, it's an act of love in the same way that you would pet your cat or you know, embrace your child, or you know, that this is really, and when I do this, the intonation is perfect and it comes out with a clear tone, and I know I can feel it. And and my experience with when I play for people and sing for people is that they feel that in their hearts, and it makes them, what I've been told is that it makes them feel more love for whoever's around them. And so to me, the role of art is to get us to feel, to bypass the intellect, all the parts of the brain that are, you know, vying for power, to just feel the love. And when you can feel yourself, it's back to my mom's line, if you don't like yourself, your neighbor's in trouble. If you feel yourself, if you feel your own heart, then you're much more likely to feel the heart of the person in front of you. And to me, that is how I justify my life. It's kind of
Wonderful. You know, thank you so much too. You brought up a couple times what happens when we are abducted by our reptile brain, or you said hijacked. And I keep a little toy when I'm coaching with people, right? And I train my clients, because when I'm working with a couple and one of them starts to go, I just gotta bring in the dinosaur to the mind. It's like we're in reptile brain right now.
Perfect.
You know, it's true. We all do get abducted by our reptile brain. And a big part of what Trish and I work as coaches, that we really try and teach people how to move from the reptile brain into the frontal lobe. And there's a beautiful story that I love to share with people about that. The Dalai Lama allowed brain researchers to hook up electrodes to his brain, and they tracked how his brain worked. Now, again, when Lily was talking about abducted or hijacked, she's talking about when we're in our reptile brain, when we as human beings, when we perceive the possibility of attack, not attack itself, just the possibility of attack, normally we're abducted by our reptile brain. And we can only choose fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. But when we're in our frontal lobe or the temporal lobe, that's where the observer part of the brain is, the empathy center is, that's where we can see the big picture with empathy. Okay. So they hook up electrodes to the Dalai Lama's brain, and for 90 minutes they run research. And what they discover that's remarkable is that at all times, his synapses are firing up here and up here, never back here. So the lead researcher is really fascinated by this, so he decides to start challenging the Dalai Lama. So they show the Dalai Lama photographs of Chinese soldiers burning down a Tibetan temple. And as the Dalai Lama looks at these photos, he weeps. He doesn't suppress his emotions, he weeps. But the synapses are still firing up here. Finally, the researcher decides to challenge him one last time and says, I really want to know, what are you thinking? What are you feeling when you think about Chinese soldiers raping Tibetan women, murdering Tibetan people? Come on, what goes on for you? The Dalai Lama was very quiet, wept. Synapses continue to fire up here. And finally he says, it reminds me I must pray equally for the Chinese as I do for my Tibetan people. Boom, boom. And this is where we as a species are going. We are, biologists have proven that every generation that is further removed from trauma and from violence or war, or for personal trauma, are more likely to access the frontal lobe. And we have to have compassion for people that are suffering from PTSD. We have to compassion for people that did grow up in homes with an alcoholic father or a raging mother, where they had to become hypervigilant and always be on the lookout. Right? So doesn't mean they're less evolved. It means that they have a more significant challenge they've been facing in their environment or in the genetics, in the epigenetics. The closer connected we are to ancestors that dealt with war and violence, the more likely we are to react. The further generations we are away from that, we have a little bit more of an opportunity, a more likelihood to access frontal lobe a little bit more easily. But this is the movement of the human species. And so let's have maximum compassion for ourselves or for others when they are abducted by reptile brain. And let's also use the tools like we've been hearing, meditation, self-reflection, calming the nervous system down, whatever tools we can find. So we develop that practice that Itai was talking about, so that when those difficult situations, or when we're facing those difficult situations, we can channel our inner Dalai Lama and have empathy for ourselves and empathy for the other. So, thank you for.
That's a beautiful, powerful story. It's a powerful story. You know,
Yeah.
it reminds me of a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh that's called "Call Me by My True Names." He speaks about hearing that, you know, the boat people in the Gulf of Sam were trying to get away, and pirates were catching them and robbing them and raping them and stuff. And he, while he was deeply meditating, so starts seeing himself as the girl that's being raped, but also as the pirate. Also, the pirate grew up as in a fisherman village with no education and no opportunities. And then someone said to them, "Hey, there's boats here. We can rob them and get some stuff." And then he goes on the poem to see himself as the person who dies from malnutrition in Congo, and the arms dealer that sells weapons to Congo. He goes on to go basically through every, and he says, "Please call me by the last verse is, please call me by my true name, so I can wake up, and the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion."
Mhm. That is beautiful. Beautiful.
It's a powerful.
God bless Thich Nhat Hanh.
God bless him every day. Bless him and keep him
I wanted
strong
to,
and healthy.
yes. I've been, in my morning meditation, I've been praying to be able to tune into, to align myself with the big love and the big flow in service of love and light. And as I've been doing that, I feel sort of a surge of energy, and I realize, and I've been directing it toward, people in Haiti and people in Afghanistan. And I've been sending the Taliban love and trying to sweeten their hearts, just sending them a lot of love. And then I've been also sending Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema a lot of love to just like, you can do it. You can really, you could save democracy. You have enough love. You are going to, and just send, like, basically trying to harness the big flow, sending a lot of love to the places where people's hearts are, need support. And it occurred to me that if all of us who are tuned into this kind of thinking and consciousness spent a little time every day sending Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema a lot of love, we might be able to get HR1 passed and at least modify the filibuster so that, that we could at least save voting rights. I don't, I'm a Capricorn, for whatever that's worth. So I'm a little pragmatic, but I, as we identify and think about making peace, there are probably, there are some things we can do, including harnessing our, our connection and sending it to, praying for the Chinese, praying for people who are, who are not, who aren't as compassionate as we would like them to be.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you. Trish.
Oh, I'm just loving what you all are saying, because I think that it's as we shift the world, as we learn to be more compassionate, not only with ourselves, with other people, and we understand how manifestations work, especially like there's massive amounts of new amazing psychology research around how we've created attachments, is why we pattern and cycle, and the way we behave is how we're conditioned, and how we just start to dissolve that, both through our morning practices or our daily practices, or allowing our meditation or our compassion practices, or the things that we do every day, is really like working with the neurology, is repatterning your neurology and your neural pathways. And I just love that everyone here is weaving the spirit in with this very like earth-based human experience, like that's the way that we're like knitting it into a cute little sweater. Anyway, my own thoughts. What I'd really like to share tonight is something that, like, if I'm going to promote something, it's part of my heart's work. Recently, I finished an anti-oppression course recently, and I'm really feeling called to a couple different places. Scott and I had a show just recently of trans men sharing their experience about how to be compassionate and loving and support people's authentic expression. And one of the people there, Jack Knoxville, has an organization called Trans Empowerment Project, and it's mostly for disabled trans people of color. And I would love if you go there and donate to their amazing program, because they help not only homeless teens or people transitioning with their hormone replacement therapy. There's a lot of, like, they're helping a lot of people in places outside of California where it's significantly easier. Again, it's transempowermentproject.org. And so they're really like helping people who are queer, trans, non-binary, two-spirit, gender non-conforming, other identities, and BIPOC folks. Like this is ground level, helping people who are homeless, helping people who really need, like the basics, like baggies of like hand washing equipment and tampons and things like that. So just putting that out there for y'all.
Thank you, Trish.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, this is where everybody has a chance to share one last time. And I'm going to read a couple comments from our wonderful, wonderful viewers. And I want to acknowledge people who've been in our Zoom room, a lot of our friends. Mark writes, this is a discussion about the most important, now go to gallery view, that way we can see everybody. Mark in our Zoom room writes, This is a discussion about the most important path of our lives, if we care to evolve. Taking a second from our immediate conditioned reaction and to breathe, to embrace the highest thought is the high road. An outburst can provide instant gratification from release, but if we want to feel a blissful balance, we need to relax once again into love. Beautifully written, Mark. Thank you so, so much. And Celeste writes, we're all here learning from our own life lessons and experiencing life from our own unique perspective. I believe we're all on this planet, our Mother Earth, as one species. And as Earth beings, I believe the division is an illusion that's been created to keep us, the 99%, attacking each other instead of coming together in unity. Mother Earth does not see labels like American or European or race or gender or physical appearance. She sees and loves us all equally as one. I believe this is what we're all striving for, despite the outside attempts to keep us othering each other. No matter which end of polarity you choose, embrace your own path and life lessons and growth with gratitude. And it does all begin with self-love and self-compassion. That inner wisdom will flow over to the energy that we put out into the world. So thank you, Celeste. Beautiful. I love our Zoom room friends. So, and I'll take a look one last time, see if there's any other sharings. Shay, I'm going to put the spotlight back on you. And I want to give you a chance to share a little bit more. And I also want to direct people to your website. And it's a beautiful website. It's shayglobal.com. And she spells it S-H-E-Y. So it's Shay, S-H-E-Y, global.com. And there's a lot there. She's got examples of her artwork, her events, and she also has a blog, Notes on the Spiritual Journey. Now, remember, this is a true former Buddhist non-bodhisattva, so her musings are quite valuable.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that Valerie that I see in
Yes, it is.
there? I recognize that beautiful face.
She is
Very
my,
She's holding it up.
Picture.
she is my sacred partner and collaborator in many things. Yes. Hi, Valerie.
Yeah.
Nice to see you there, darling. Yeah, thank you, Scott, for pointing to the website. I would like to think there's some wonderful content there. You can hang out with some art if you like. If you're ever in Sedona, I'm with the Goldenstein Gallery here, and they have, if you want to flip to the homepage, that's a good place to go. Oh, you know, the art. No, the art's great too, wherever you want to go.
Okay, well, here's the homepage.
Yeah, there's the homepage, and there's paintings and jewelry and sculpture, of course. And I also do some coaching, some heart-centered living and mindfulness and meditation. One of the projects that I have cooking right now that I'm really excited about, I call it Follow the Peace Trail. And what we're doing is, it was just something we would do once just during the month of September, but this year we've decided to pace it a little slower, and we're going to be stretching it out through the year. And basically, I make connection with visionaries and thought leaders and advocates for peace, and we are gathering tools and practices to share with people, that things that they can integrate into their daily practice, whether it be conscious communications, whether it be conflict resolution, sustainability, supporting children, different things like that. And I've got some wonderful interviews this season, and they should start airing this weekend. And we've chosen a theme of small acts of immeasurable benefit, sort of in the theme of the dots. And so we're doing little short clips on things that, you know, accessible tools that people would consider embracing in their own life. And so you can find that a connection to that on the website too, the schedule and such. But Anyway, thank you so much. This has been so rich to share with all of you. I have loved meeting Lily and Itai. Lily, I loved your description of how you play your music with such an intentional moment. And I applaud also the practicality of prayer and voting. You know, you get out and you do everything, just cover all the bases. But anyway, you are all beautiful and I adore you. Was a sweet surprise to find Valerie here as well. Her music uplifts and inspires me in so many wonderful ways that I never even knew was possible until we connected. So anyway, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Trish.
You. Valerie, anything you'd like to share in closing?
Well, I would like to just take the opportunity to Lily and Itai to tell you what a big fan I am of your music. I've known about you guys for a while and have listened to you before even, you know, making a personal connection. Scott had mentioned you last week that you were going to be on, and then I love your music. There's just the rhythms and the feeling and the just the grooves and the intention and the vibrations. I love that, and I love nothing more than, you know, just like making music and creating together and having, you know, joining the intentions. And so I just look forward to getting to know you guys better. So
Likewise, can't wait to hear your music.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Shay, we're going to do some stuff together. We're going to do some, we have some music that we're going to share on Follow the Peace Trail. And last year we did a music festival. It was actually a 5-hour like virtual event, and
yes, it was exciting.
and, yeah, Shay, you had different people that you interviewed at the top of every hour, and I had a lot of musical guests. And we're going to be rolling out and showing some of that this month. And as the Peace Trail kind of unfolds, we're finding little fun cuts and starting to share what we did last year, in addition to new stuff this year. So I'm really,
and it'll roll out not just in September. It'll just,
yeah, it's just going to roll out for the whole year.
Momentum.
Yeah,
music and meditations and all kinds of stuff.
and I also want to share. I was so proud that I got to work on Ananda Yogiji's new album, and I played lead guitar on a lot of the tracks, and we had such a fun time collaborating on that. And I got to play on Johanna Beekman's album. She has a new some new things she's working on, and we've collaborated and written a lot of songs together over this time. But getting to play, you know, just dig in and, you know, play and add sounds to her music was really fun. So lots of new stuff in the can.
Thank you for all the collaborations you do, Valerie. Thank you for being with us tonight, introducing us to Shay. And of course, we'll see you on Saturday Night Live again real soon.
Yes.
All right, I am going to Lily and
She's playing
Itai.
the violin.
Oh my God, I'm very happy to see what I see.
After you
Right?
guys talk, so I just thought I might, just in case.
I love it.
Yes.
Please.
I'm going to be the opening band for her. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us and the opportunity to meet all these fabulous human beings and souls, and everything you have said really enriched, you know, my heart. So thank you so much for everything and for your presence, for the work that you're doing. We need more of us in the world, you know, so thank you.
Well, you know, and we're finding that. And
Yeah, I think so.
I love the idea of closing with her violin. So I'm actually going to do the little promotion for Opium Moon. So tomorrow night, everybody, you can come to Saturday Night Live and listen to Opium Moon play live. Plus, we're going to get to know their album. The entire after show is listening to their album and stopping in between cuts and having them talk about it. But I want to encourage everybody also to go to opiummoon.com. There's 2 M's in there, by the way. So it's opiummoon, 2 M's.com. And I also want to acknowledge the majority of people that watch this show watch the replay. So please go to opiummoon.com. Join us tomorrow night if you see this in time. We'll go watch the recording of that. And what a delight to meet both of you, and looking forward to meeting your bandmates and I love the idea of closing with music. So I'm going to see if Trish has any final words before Lily's violin.
I just want to thank you all for showing up so lovingly and compassionately and with such heart and really the deep care and consideration that you have for humanity. So thank you all. It's such a pleasure and a blessing to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you, you too.
All right, Lily, you get to close us out.
Well, I think I may have circumvented. Itai had a thought he wanted to share, so I don't want to jump. I didn't want to interfere with that. So
It depends how much time we have. I want to say one thing, and that is this. I think that we are one. Everything after this is illusions. So as we learn that we have one world, this is one family of all of us, the people and the creatures and everything, one family. Let's learn to see through our differences to what unites us. It's pretty easy. It's actually the other thing is more difficult. The illusion is way more difficult than reality. So let's get with reality.
Ooh,
I got a riff on that then. So there's a really cool thing that's going on in our lifetime. The most ancient sacred texts that have survived that aren't in the basement at the Vatican somewhere are the Vedic scriptures written about 7,000 years ago. And in the Vedas, God is known as Brahman. And there are 26 principles that are assigned to Brahman, to God, written 7,000 years ago. Fast forward to today, and our most modern science, of course, is quantum physics. And in quantum physics, we have scientifically proven that there actually is no blank space. We're all living in a unified field of ever-changing molecules. Guess what? The unified field, from a scientific point of view, has 26 principles. And the 26 principles of the unified field perfectly correlate with the 26 principles or descriptions or definitions of Brahman, God, written 7,000 years ago. Meaning that our most ancient spiritual wisdom and our most modern science come together to say the same thing, which is what Itai was just saying. There really is only one extraordinary unified field of ever-changing molecules. Call it God, call it life, call it whatever you want. That is reality. But we are in the illusion of separation, and we're coming out of the illusion of separation into this new reality. And this is the time we're living in. It's a very powerful and magical time.
and
Yeah.
I'll riff on that to say that yesterday was Yom Kippur, and it's the Day of Atonement, which many people break down to at 1 minute. It's the day where you written into the book of life? Does God remember you? And it seems to me that remembering that when we create and when we remember, we come together, we remember the oneness. And so I'm going to play the Kol Nidre in that spirit. Let me just tune real quick while I wasn't planning on playing, so give me a sec. Move a little furniture here. I'm wearing an outfit that is not really an outfit. It's sort of, so if there's a wardrobe malfunction, you'll forgive me. It's a Zoom outfit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Amazing. One of our readers, Wanda, wrote, to embrace not only our likenesses, but differences as well, is love and compassion manifested. And I think your violin said that as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's all gather together and do a whole day together. So much wealth and so much to converse. And I'm glad I get to be with Lily and Itai tomorrow night. And want to invite everybody to join us on Saturday Night Live tomorrow night as well. Thank you, everybody. And
Please stay in touch, everyone. I'm instantly in love with all of you.
I'm right with you there. This is lovely. Lovely. Thank you.
good night, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.